One of the most exciting scientific findings of the past half-century has been the discovery of widespread trophic cascades. A trophic cascade is an ecological process which starts at the top of the food chain and tumbles all the way down to the bottom. And the classic example is what happened in the Yellowstone National Park in the United States when wolves were reintroduced in 1995. Now, we all know that wolves kill various species of animals, but perhaps we're slightly less aware that they give life to many others. Before the wolves turned up, they'd been absent for 70 years, that the numbers of deer, because there was nothing to hunt them, had built up in the Yellowstone Park, and despite efforts by humans to control them, they'd managed to reduce much of the vegetation there to almost nothing. They'd just grazed it away. But as soon as the wolves arrived, even though they were few in number, they started to have the most remarkable effects. First, of course, they killed some of the deer, but that wasn't the major thing. Much more significantly, they radically changed the behavior of the deer. The deer started avoiding certain parts of the park, the places where they could be trapped most easily, particularly the valleys and the gorges. And immediately those places started to regenerate. In some areas, the height of the trees quintupled in just 6 years. Bare valley sides quickly became forests of aspen and willow and cottonwood. And as soon as that happened, the birds started moving in. The number of songbirds, of migratory birds, started to increase greatly. The number of beavers started to increase because beavers like to eat the trees. And beavers, like wolves, are ecosystem engineers. They create niches for other species. And the dams they built in the rivers provided habitats for otters and muskrats and ducks and fish and reptiles and amphibians. The wolves killed coyotes, and as a result of that, the number of rabbits and mice began to rise, which meant more hawks, more weasels, more foxes, more badgers. Ravens and bald eagles came down to feed on the carrion that the wolves had left. Bears fed on it too, and their population began to rise as well, partly also because there were more berries growing on the regenerating shrubs. And the bears reinforced the impact of the wolves by killing some of the calves of the deer. But here's where it gets really interesting. The wolves changed the behavior of the rivers. They began to meander less. There was less erosion. The channels narrowed, more pools formed, more riffle sections, all of which were great for wildlife habitats. The rivers changed in response to the wolves. And the reason was that the regenerating forests stabilized the banks so that they collapsed less often, so that the rivers became more fixed in their course. Similarly, by driving the deer out of some places and the vegetation recovering on the valley sides, there was less soil erosion because the vegetation stabilized that as well. So the wolves, small in number, transformed not just the ecosystem of the Yellowstone National Park, this huge area of land, but also its physical geography.
Two anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
My beauty.
my power.
My life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
You know, sometimes when I'm walking down the street, I'm not necessarily looking out and seeing all these water-wasting lawns and people that aren't as connected to their neighbors and their lives as they could be. I'm walking down the street looking, going, edible oases, rainwater, fed landscape, and just looking at the possibility of these sort of landscapes up and down the streets of neighborhoods and communities all across this world. Small actions do ripple, and they add up, and they have a cumulative impact. And so when you're building upon your small mindful actions, you know, you have the confidence and the ability to take on something a little bit greater. So that could be nice. This, in the context of where we're at as a planet with climate change and these really big issues, and people that are more disconnected and less skilled than ever, it becomes even more amazing and powerful how much of a solution this is to design these ecological gardens and to come together with shared vision and shared voice. There's never been a time where your choices have mattered more. Doing something as simple as us transforming a landscape creates a model that anybody could look at far and wide, and you're sharing food and connecting and building skills together in your own neighborhood. It's a richer way to live in normal times, but in the new normal of climate change and erratic weather and economic upheaval, it becomes essential. Whether it's me, you, Gandhi, Che, MLK, Willy Wonka, whoever, past, present, or future, the power of our daily actions is all that we have. You know, and like our community said, give me a place to stand and a lever long enough and I'll move the world. And that's what those simple actions do. They move the world every day.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Jeb Bush says, "I'm my own man," by George. Yeah, look at his list of foreign policy advisors. 19 out of 21 of them worked for his brother or his father. Yeah, he's his own man, and I am an astronaut. What do you say? Hello, everybody. Great to see you today. Thursday, February 19. The Bill Press Show. You know, the guy with the scratchy voice. Here he is. Here we are, all together again for the next 3 hours to get on top of all the news of the day, wherever it's happening. We're there with you to find out what's going on and what it all means and what the hell we can do about it. The Bill Press Show coming to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, and our studio on Capitol Hill, where we are keeping the home fires burning, even though the House and the Senate are out of town. And President Obama goes off on another little day trip to Chicago today. But we'll let you know what's going on here in Washington, around the country, and around the globe. And most importantly, we want to hear from you what you think about it all, what it means to you and your family and your community. And you can do so by giving us a call at 866-55-PRESS, by sending us your comments on Twitter. Twitter has been alive overnight, as it always is. We'll get you up to date on that. And Facebook, same with Facebook. All of our friends on Facebook, if you aren't one already, join us and send us your comments. Befriend us on Facebook.com/Bill Press Show. How about it? Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy. Hello, hello.
Here we are.
Hey, good morning.
Happy Thursday.
Almost Friday.
Another cold one.
Boy, oh boy.
Yeah, I'm telling.
I'll tell you something.
Little wind chill there, walking over in the face. Yeah, wakes you up. Wakes you up.
It's like 9 degrees outside without the wind chill. And then when the wind hits you, man, it just goes right through you.
Yeah, it's about like 5 below, maybe.
Cuts you
or something.
like a knife.
I know, It does, yeah.
And I think tomorrow morning it's supposed to be 0.
Oh, stop it.
So it gets better from here.
Tell me any bad news.
Is that right? Ooh, wow. Are the screws there
See
on
you
the
on
phones? Yeah. Ready to take your calls at 866-55-PRESS. Again, and Cyprian Balding. Our videographer, if we're looking good, thanks to Cyprian keeping us looking good. On Free Speech TV. Because remember, we're not only there with you in Radioland on your local progressive talk radio station nationwide on those 2 great radio apps, iHeartRadio or TuneIn, or we're there also on every day, all 3 hours on Free Speech TV and worldwide on our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV, TAWKR-TV. So, another major American business went belly up yesterday, at least filed for Chapter 11, which sometimes, pardon me, sometimes people come out of Chapter 11, but sometimes that's the beginning of the end. This particular business, it's not hard to find out what was wrong with its business plan, as Conan O'Brien told us last night.
Tough news. The restaurant chain Salad Works has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy.
Yeah.
Analysts attribute the failure to it being a salad restaurant located in America.
Failed business plan.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah. Pretty bad business plan. Yeah. I mean, you got the salad bar at McDonald's, but they don't depend on it.
No, right.
Right? By the way, there is a great, I don't think they're outside of Washington, D.C. yet, But there's a great little salad chain here in Washington called Sweet Greens.
Sure, yeah.
I think they're really, really good.
Yeah, they're local.
Very creative. Yeah. They're local. Mm-hmm. I don't think, only Five Guys. I don't think they've spread yet.
Right. No, they haven't spread that far.
California, too, has Fresh Choice. Have you ever been to a Fresh Choice? They're pretty good.
No.
Yeah, they're throughout the whole state.
Nice.
I don't know how.
I'm a Chopped man myself. I like Chopped.
I don't know how I missed them. Well, that's why. Oh, Chopped.
I'm a big fan of Chopped.
That's another
Yes.
good little. Are they nationwide now?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
They might be. No, I know they have them in New York. Yeah. So maybe it's an East Coast thing.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, anyhow, salad. Salad works. No, it doesn't.
Yeah, maybe not.
Right. We got lots of good people coming in today from The Nation, from Politico, from Washington Post, from Defense One, and from the National Journal, all joining you and me to talk about the news of the day. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. You know who else has salads, Bill, is Chipotle. Although a lot of people aren't ordering them. In fact, a new story by the New York Times takes a look at the average order at Chipotle.
Burrito bowl.
Well, the average order, you will end up eating more than 1,000 calories and almost a full day's worth of sodium. Now, people always say how healthy Chipotle is. And you can.
I like Chipotle.
You can. Well, it's not healthy. Don't think it's healthy, but I like Chipotle too. You can eat healthier.
It's pretty healthy.
You can eat healthier, right? If you get the salad that they have, and then you put, choose wisely at what you put on it.
No, you don't go to Chipotle for salad.
I'm just saying, if you want to eat healthy, that's what you're going to need to do at Chipotle. If you eat one of those burritos, you might as well be eating a Big Mac.
How about
if
a burrito
you're eating
bowl?
One of the bowls, because of the carbs and the fat that's in the meat and the sodium that goes into the rice and the meat and things like that, you're pretty much eating a day's worth of sodium.
I hate you.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, they're so good.
I love
That's so sad.
I love Chipotles, but you just know when you go there, you're not eating spa food. I'm just saying.
I never heard that. We were in this ear, out that one.
That story didn't exist.
No.
Bye. If you have a tattoo and you want to remove it, things are about to get very, very easy for you. A researcher at Dalhousie University in Halifax, has developed a topical cream which he says will slowly fade tattoo ink on your body. Now, in the past, getting a tattoo removed could cost thousands of dollars.
Right.
Because you have to go in for laser treatment and all that kind of stuff. But he says a topical cream will only cost you about $25 for a tube, and it'll get rid of it by the time you're done with the tube.
Really?
That's it. So
now you can follow all those bad impulses you have.
Yeah, right.
Wipe all those bad decisions right away.
I'm not sure I believe it, but
I'll believe it when I see it.
Revolutionary.
And the rich keep getting richer. In the most recent Powerball drawing, Bill, you'll be shocked to hear who won. Dale Earnhardt Jr., the most successful NASCAR driver on the circuit today, he bought a Powerball ticket when he was in New York, and he won. He only won $12, but he won. He promised his girlfriend to give it to charity because it's not like he needs the money.
I hope you put a little more money on top of it.
Yeah, I hope.
Exactly, but $12 to Dale Earnhardt.
That's like
$12 you didn't win.
No, that's like Warren Buffett winning. Yeah, come on. All right. Thank you, Peter. Yes, indeed. Here in Washington, one story that hasn't gone away. The controversy continues about something we've been talking about here on the program, and I feel pretty strongly about, and that is this up-and-coming, unless he cancels, speech on March 3rd. Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel invited to address a joint session of Congress, invited, of course, by Speaker John Boehner. You remember the details. Without consulting the White House, without consulting the State Department, without consulting other leaders of Congress. Boehner just did this to poke President Obama in the eye, even though he says he didn't intend to do that way, to invite for the first time ever, this is totally unprecedented, inviting a leader of another country to come in and be given the honor of addressing our Congress, both houses, in a joint session, addressing them in order to disagree with a policy recommendation of the President of the United States. In other words, yes, bring a foreign leader in here to attack our president and give him a platform in front of the United States Congress to do so. It is unprecedented. It is outrageous. I think it is treason. And the worst thing about it is it makes support for Israel a political football, which it has never been and never should be. And it forces basically members of Congress to choose, are you going to stand up for President Obama? Or are you going to stand up for Bibi Netanyahu? I mean, that's not what this is all about. It should not be about. That turn of events is not good for the United States. And I got to tell you, it is not good for Israel either. Now, again, Boehner, he insists he's a pure virgin in this. He had no bad intentions.
I did not consult with the White House. The Congress can make this decision on its own. I don't believe I'm poking anyone in the eye.
Oh, yes, he is. And he knows it.
Of course he knows it.
He knows it, and he's doing it deliberately. Now, so the politics of it, and the politics, also, the politics is wrong. So is the policy wrong, I believe. Because the policy difference here, and again, we've talked about this, there is a difference in policy about the approach to Iran on the part of President Obama, who wants give diplomacy a chance to work. And we're in the very, very, very final stages of the second round of negotiations with Iran. The fact that we're even at the table is remarkable. Those negotiations may succeed or may not succeed, but the president says we should hold our fire until we know what's going to come out of those. That's one approach. The other approach is John McCain and some of the hardliners, including some Democrats in the Senate, who say bomb, 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 bomb Iran. I mean, they want another war in Iran. That's their policy. And they want to slap on more sanctions, and they don't want negotiations. They don't want to give negotiations a chance. Now, again, two legitimate, I think one's very wrong, one's very correct, but two legitimate points of view, a basic difference in policy among Americans. But to bring a foreign leader in to argue one side of that argument is what's wrong with this. Again, so if you think this is going away, here we go. Full page ad in this morning's New York Times. And it asks some very simple questions. This is a memo to Speaker John Boehner. Number one, who is our commander-in-chief? Is it A, Barack Obama, or B, Benjamin Netanyahu? Number two, the Iraq War. Which do you choose? A, the Iraq War will only fan the flames of the Middle East, said Barack Obama. Or B, I guarantee you it will have enormous positive reverberations on the region. The Iraq War, said Bibi Netanyahu. Which do you agree with? Number three, what is the best way to prevent a nuclear-armed Iran? A, President Obama, a diplomatic agreement. Bibi Netanyahu, B, another war. Pretty clear. That's the choice. That's the policy choice. So I believe Boehner is wrong on the policy. He's wrong on the politics. And he's particularly wrong on this invitation to Netanyahu. And Netanyahu is even more wrong to accept it. So the headline in this New York Times ad is, will Congress side with our president or a foreign leader? It should not get down to that, but that's where it is.
That's where it is. Yeah, absolutely.
So now we want to tell you, every member of Congress now has to make a decision. Are they going to side with our president or a foreign leader? Now, Republicans, of course, they're going to side with Bibi because that's their way of sticking it to Obama, right? I mean, it's infantile, but that's the game they're playing. The Democrats, it's a different story. And let me tell you, some of them have a pair of balls and some of them don't. It's as simple as that. We've got up on our website here the list of, they call it the honor roll, and we give credit to our friends at The Hill who put this up here. There are so far 22 Democrats in the House and 3 in the Senate who say they will not show up for Bibi's speech because they don't like, again, making support for Israel a political football. One of them who is not showing up back on February 5 was on our program. Congressman John Yarmuth, happens to be a Jew from Kentucky, said at the time, here's what he thinks about what Boehner did.
Well, I haven't decided yet.
No, that's
no
I want
question
the
in my
no. The first one.
Yeah, I'm inclined not to go. I haven't made a final decision on that, but I think there are a lot of Democrats. I've talked to a lot of Democrats who are planning to sit it out.
Really?
Yeah.
So there are some already who have that you know who are not going to go.
Absolutely.
Since that time, Congressman Yarmuth has made the announcement he is not going to go. But just quickly, in the House, again, 22 Democrats who have said not going to show up. The list: Earl Blumenauer from Oregon. Listen carefully. See if your guy's on the list.
Yeah.
Your man or the woman representing you. G.K. Butterfield from North Carolina and Andre Carson from Indiana. James Clyburn, South Carolina. Good for him. Diana DeJette, Colorado. Donna Edwards, Maryland. Keith Ellison, Minnesota. Raul Grijalva, Arizona. Luis Gutierrez, Illinois. Eleanor Holmes Norton from the district here. Eddie Bernice Johnson, Texas. Barbara Lee, California. John Lewis, Georgia. Betty McCollum, Minnesota. Jim McDermott, Washington. Gregory Meeks, New York. Beto O'Rourke from Texas. Shelley Pingree from Maine. Charlie Rangel from New York. Cedric Richmond from Louisiana. Benny Thompson from Mississippi. And John Yarmuth from Kentucky all say, we are not going to show up. 3 senators, Pat Leahy, Bernie Sanders, and Brian Schatz from Hawaii, not showing up.
What I love about this list, which we have on the website, we've also tweeted at BP Show, is there's statements from some of these lawmakers and what they had to say. Leahy called it a, quote, tawdry and high-handed stunt. Charlie Rangel said, I'm offended as an American.
Yeah.
Just really putting it out there on how they feel about it.
And several of them say, I don't want to be forced to choose between my president and a foreign leader. Forced to choose, I choose my president. Is your leader on the list? Should Democrats stay away? 866-55-PRESS. The honor roll is up on our website, BillPressShow.com, and we will update it between now and March 3rd. Let's talk about it.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all of the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university?
Yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, 27 minutes after the hour, the honor roll of Democrats who have pledged not to attend Prime Minister Netanyahu's speech on March 3rd. It's up on our website. 22 House Democrats, 3 Democratic senators. Peter.
We are on Twitter at BP Show, Already heard from a couple of you letting us know that your congressperson is on the list of people not going, so that's pretty cool. We also heard from Phil, who says if Nancy Pelosi had done this while she was Speaker, GOP would have demanded her head on a spike.
Boy, you got that right.
Don't you know it?
If she invited any foreign leader, and by the way, again, this has nothing to do with Israel, it's nothing to do with our support of Israel. This has to do with any foreign leader. Any foreign leader. Doesn't matter if it's France or the UK or Israel or Venezuela. No, no, no. Bill Press Show continues. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. If I say dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay, so who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan, big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
Oh, pardon me. Here we go. It is Thursday, February 19. It is the Bill Press Show. And here we go, talking about first the continuing controversy about the speech that Benjamin Netanyahu has been invited to give to a joint session of Congress on March 3rd. More and more Democrats lining up. I'm really looking forward to Leader Nancy Pelosi saying, I'm going to lead the Democrats in not showing up and asking all the members of my caucus to join me. Not mandatory, but just offering that invitation. I hope she does that. By the way, I don't know whether you saw that Leader Pelosi was in Cuba over the weekend.
Yeah, sure.
Or this week, part of this President's Week. She went down for a little...
I don't blame her.
I don't blame her either.
Get south, man.
I'm a little jealous. I don't get to go until May.
Okay.
We have our trip. We have our trip planned for May. The other big news yesterday out in Chicago, in front of the Chicago Council on Foreign Relations, little Jebby stepped up to the plate. This got a lot of advance publicity. Everybody said Jeb is going to prove he's his own guy. This is going to be his take on foreign policy, and we will see how he differs with his brother and with his father. He sort of underwhelmed the audience, I think, and everybody expecting very much out of this. But he did give the magic line that he had rehearsed, I'm sure, over and over.
But I'm my own man, and my views are shaped by my own thinking and my own experiences.
Yes, and he did say, admitted, that his brother made some mistakes.
There were mistakes made in Iraq, for sure. Using the intelligence capability that everybody embraced about weapons of mass destruction turns out not to be accurate.
Yeah, there turned out not to be any WMDs. But back in the middle of it, back in 2010, Jeb Bush took a little different tack.
I will tell you that I'm the only Republican that was in office when he was as president that never disagreed with him. And I'm not going to start now. Why would I do that now after 2 years?
No, I'm not going to start now in 2010. I'm going to start now in 2015.
Give a little time.
When I'm running for president.
That's right.
Yeah, right. So the thing is, he's his own man. Does anybody believe that? And how? Overall, the speech from the reviews I've read, and I must admit, I didn't watch it. I was busy at the time. He got a lot of stuff wrong. Pretty hesitant speech. He had to correct himself. He said there were 200,000 members of ISIS, and they came out later and said, no, the governor, there was a decimal point wrong. He meant to say 20,000 members of ISIS on the ground. He called Boko Haram Boko Haram. Well, there are Boko Haram. Yeah. There are Troda Haram, actually, but at any rate. I'm sorry, a little French joke there.
Went over my head, I'm sorry.
So overall, I mean, he didn't razzle-dazzle the crowd. But, Peter, tell us about this list of advisors.
So he's got this list of advisors.
To prove he's his own man.
Remember, he is his own man. Don't forget that. He is his own man. He has cobbled together about 21 advisors, and they all, except for one, all of them come from either the Reagan administration, the George H.W. Bush administration, or the George W. Bush administration. Only one person on the list comes purely from Jeb Bush, and that's Lincoln Diaz Balart. The vast majority...
From Florida, of course.
From Florida. The vast majority of people on this list come from George W. Bush's administration. And just listen to these names.
19 out of 21 worked for his father or his brother.
Yes.
As you said, 20 out of 21 worked for his brother, his father, or Ronnie.
Yeah, exactly. Here's some of the names that he has on this list, and you'll recognize a lot of them. Tom Ridge, Michael Hayden, Michael Chertoff, Porter Goss, Michael Mukasey, John Negroponte, Paul Wolfowitz. Somehow, Paul Wolfowitz is being allowed back into the political fold. James Baker is on the list. Stephen Hadley is on the list. George Shultz is on the list from the Reagan. He's the one from the Reagan and the Jeb Bush there. So, yeah. Meet the new guys, same as the old guys.
Right. As I said at the top of the show, I'm my own man, by George.
But you know, that whole thing, that's right. This whole I am my own man thing, I think he set this out to be a proud moment for him, right? Like this is going to be a definitive moment that he can pivot away from the past of the Bush family. That particular piece of tape is going to bite him in the ass several times in an election. I'm my own man. Really? And then you look at these people that he's put together. I mean, I imagine that this is just the foreign policy side of things. Imagine what he's going to do with, education and all the other things at home he's going to have and build these advisors around. They're going to be a bunch of the same old names. They are.
There is no doubt that his administration would be filled with all the failed leftovers from George W. Bush's administration.
Yeah. When we talk about the failures in Iraq, we're talking about Paul Wolfowitz, John Negroponte, all of these names, Stephen Hadley. All these names are names we've talked about so many times because they screwed up so badly in Iraq.
The other thing that gets me is that people feel that that there's some magic in numbers. Like, why does he need 21 people to tell him what was wrong with Iraq, right?
Right. Read a newspaper. Go online.
I don't need anybody.
Read what happened.
I don't have one foreign policy advisor. Right.
We don't have a think tank for the show?
No. I have a brain. I can read. I can, see the evidence, right? But I must say, I had the same reaction when I read that Hillary Clinton has 200 economic advisors. 200. How many do you think Bernie Sanders has? None. He knows this stuff.
Yeah.
How many do you think Elizabeth Warren has? None. She doesn't need 200 people to tell her that the middle class are hurting and wages haven't gone up and we got to raise the minimum wage and we got to do something to... I mean, it's just insane, but this is sort of this new approach. The more people you have advising you on any issue, the smarter you are.
Clearly.
No, I think the dumber you look, right?
Yeah. You need to have this many. That's not using your advisors as a crutch. It's using them as a motorized wheelchair. You have no ideas.
At the same time, as much of and reporters are this morning calling it a bomb, the speech of those who were there. As much of a bomb as it might have been, I still have to say, I think it's pretty clear that Jeb Bush is the front runner today.
Yeah. Who else is out there?
Don't you?
I think so. I think absolutely that he's the front runner.
Yeah. I mean, he's eclipsed Chris Christie. He's eclipsed Rand Paul. The only one who may be giving him a little competition, if you will, right now is Rand Paul. I'm sorry, Scott Walker is what I meant to say. Scott Walker.
Scott Walker's, yeah. Sure.
The difference, of course, is that Jeb Bush graduated from college. We have time for a quick call before we break.
Let's do it.
All right. Say hello to David out in Detroit. Hello, David.
Yeah. Hey, this morning I was watching this on TV. Bush has already came out and said that his brother's administration of war was successful, that it was the Obama administration that screwed everything up. So if he truly believes that, if he's elected, he's going to resume where his brother left off.
I think that's a good conclusion. Yeah, he did say that. He praised, he says mistakes were made, but overall, he praised the war in Iraq. He praised his brother's conduct of the war in Iraq. And in fact, he said his brother showed courage that no other president has shown with the surge in Iraq. So, yeah, David, buyers beware. And when we come back, George Zornick from The Nation magazine on Jeb Bush, and he's also been reporting on the big meeting between Hillary Clinton and Elizabeth Warren. What was that all about?
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed in this moment in history to stand alongside of these protesters. Truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found on the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer. Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now. Please.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
It is the Bill Press Show. My name is Peter Ogburn here with Bill Press. He's here.
Hey.
He's here. We're helping Bill along while his voice gets to be 100%, so we're giving him as much rest as we can. But meanwhile, we are here talking to our good friend George Zornick, D.C. Bureau reporter for The Nation. You can follow him on Twitter at @GZornick and read his work at thenation.com. George, good morning, man. How you doing?
Great. How are you guys?
Good. Well, we're going to pick it up where we left off there we were just talking about Jeb Bush and his big speech yesterday. What's your takeaway? How did he do?
You know, I think it's really important for people to understand. I don't think he did that well, but a lot of the headlines were, Jeb Bush steps away from his brother's shadow. Jeb Bush distinguishes himself from George on Iraq. And I think this can't be further from the truth. And some folks, I think, have a short memory. What they're basing that on is that Jeb said, if you recall, he said, well, mistakes were made in Iraq, and specifically, obviously there weren't WMDs there, and we should have done more to ensure the security after the fall of Saddam. This is exactly what the Bush administration boilerplate was, even while Bush was still in the White House, while George W. Bush was still in the White House. That was the official line, was like, because it was blazingly obvious to everyone that there were mistakes. They said, oh yeah, there were mistakes. We should have done more on security. Everyone thought there were WMDs. Whoops, there weren't. But the surge was right. And that's exactly what Jeb said. So I saw this being misinterpreted as, oh, he said there were mistakes in Iraq. And I think it's really important to remember that this is George W. Bush boilerplate for what happened. And it's not one iota of difference from his brother. I mean, it's the same policy.
Well, how can you say that? I mean, he has his own council of foreign advisors now, George. 21 of them.
Right, exactly. That's the other thing. And you look at these guys like Wolfowitz. I mean, you expect there to be some overlap because the foreign policy establishment in either party is not that big. But, when you get a guy like Wolfowitz who has just been so thoroughly disgraced and bring him back, I mean, it's like a blinking red light.
That was the name that just smacked me in the face, Wolfowitz. Wolfowitz is back in the mix again. It's amazing. So if we could switch gears to the Democratic side of 2016, let's just say this one final time. Elizabeth Warren is not running for president, right?
As of today, she's not, and there's no reason to believe that she will. I mean, obviously, these folks trying to draft her in want to really give her a good reason, but I think they have their work cut out for them because it doesn't seem like she actually wants to run.
Yeah, it seems to me like she just has absolutely no interest in it. But maybe the door might be open for a vice presidential run. I saw that she met with Hillary Clinton a couple days ago.
Yeah, I saw that. I think both camps are trying to spin this in a positive light, that the Hillary folks, or folks not, that work for her, but the people who want her to run and not be challenged by Warren say, oh, look, see, Warren's definitely not running. She's meeting with Hillary. And then the Warren backers are saying, well, this is a good sign. It means Hillary's moving to the left. I don't particularly think either of those are true. I mean, I don't think a sign that Hillary meets privately with Warren in her living room and doesn't announce it until a month after really means that she's moving to the left. But nor do I think it means that Warren's suddenly being co-opted. I mean, I think it's two people who are sort of at the top of Democratic Party politics having a chat. I would be shocked if Warren even entertained the idea of being vice president. I mean, that's sort of like being put in a box and told to shut up for 4 to 8 years. So, I mean, for her, I think a Senate seat would be much more preferable.
How did this meeting come about? Do we know, George?
We know that Hillary asked for it. We know that she reached out and asked her to come and not to bring any aides. We know that Hillary didn't ask her to, or at least according to the reports that haven't been disputed, didn't ask Warren to endorse her or really get into the race too much, but that she asked Warren for her ideas about the campaign, and that Warren outlined some of the things that she thought were important to run on, curbing the power of big financial institutions, student loans, and the things that we know she's passionate about. So it's an interesting meeting, but it's a really interesting meeting. I'm just not sure how much you can divine from it in either direction. I think it is fair to say that Hillary does recognize that Warren is a force, is a potential threat, and is
that to me was kind of one of these that was a takeaway from this, is that at least Hillary is somewhat aware of the fact that people perceive her as not liberal enough or not far enough to the left that she feels that she should at least reach out to someone like Elizabeth Warren.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really amazing. It speaks to how powerful Warren's stature is for someone who has said literally over 50 times she's not running. I mean, Hillary Clinton is not having Martin O'Malley or Bernie Sanders or Jim Webb over to her house. She could care less about these guys, apparently. It's just so weird that she has over the one person who is clearly, at this point, not running.
Now, I want to know, George, this is the 150th anniversary this year of The Nation magazine, right?
That's right.
So what are they doing to staffers like you? What is your, what, have they told you yet? How are they going to make sure that you enjoy all the fruits and benefits of 150 years of The Nation?
They've actually got a lot planned. They've really been cranking away on a special anniversary issue, which is coming out very soon, and I would watch for it. It's a big issue. It looks all the way back to when The Nation started. Has a ton of great content. I mean, I've seen some of the sneak previews of what they're planning, and it's really exciting. There's actually a documentary about The Nation's history coming out, which is premiering New York next week. And there are a few other surprises, I would say, in line for the rest of the year. So it's going to be a year-long thing.
Okay. When you have the premiere in Washington, D.C., you sure we're on the list here, George.
Absolutely.
Come on,
no doubt about it.
All right,
George Zornick, our buddy, D.C. Bureau reporter from The Nation. Thanks so much, George. Appreciate it.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan. And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees. which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately I've been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Molly O'Toole from Defense One joins us in studio at the top of the next hour. Peter.
Just a quick story here because we're always looking for celebrities to run for political office.
We love it.
We love it, right? Carole King's name apparently was kicked around to run for political office, and she had a very interesting answer. She's very politically active. She's championed her causes here on Capitol Hill, but she said, no, I will never run for political office. She did point out not all politicians are corrupt and not all politicians are bad people. She just doesn't want to be one herself.
You know, Carole King and James Taylor.
There you go. That's a hell of a ticket.
Good combination. They make some sweet music together,
Sure,
right?
Absolutely.
I think they're both better off doing exactly what they do. No need for celebrities to run for politics, actually. Molly O'Toole brings us up to date on the big counterterrorism summit at the White House.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I'm a Piston fan. Their slogan was, "We come to work." That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governors can come here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas, too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people had lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption. They lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. I've been working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we took 4 pay cuts and then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got, a lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving and try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to. I'm not eligible for Social Security, so the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance right through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feed myself blood pressure, or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor is allowing this to happen and what they're doing and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100, and I'm 81 years old, and I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for.
I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do, because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough. They adapt. But only can do so much when your politicians ahead of you and we're not on the same team. We're not going to let Detroit be erased, bulldozed, or whatever. We're going to fight to the bitter end. Detroit going to survive.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use. It's a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Jeb Bush says, I'm my own man. You don't believe it? Just look at my foreign policy advisors. Yeah, 19 of them work for my brother or my daddy. I'm my own man, though. Hello, everybody. It is Thursday, February 19th. Great to see you today, and thank you for being part of the program. The Bill Press Show coming to you live from Washington, D.C., and our studio on Capitol Hill, where we track the news of the day here in Washington, around the country, and around the globe. Tell you what's going on, and you tell us what it means to you by giving us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Joining us here in studio again this morning to talk about the big event in Washington this week, of course, is the Summit on Countering Violent Extremism at the White House. President Obama speaking to that group yesterday. Molly O'Toole's been covering it for Defense One, good friend of the program. Up early this morning and on the job. Hey, Molly.
Good morning. Not as early as you guys.
Nice to see you.
Early enough. Pretty early.
Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy.
Hello, Bill.
Hey, good morning.
With Alicia Cruz on the phones, and Cyprian Boulding, our videographer here nearby. And we have 3 doctors standing by to assist
It takes
me,
a village.
Assist me at any time with my throat.
Here's the deal.
If necessary.
You've been dealing with this loss of voice and scratchy throat for a couple days now. We're rallying around you.
10 days.
For 10 days now.
Yeah.
We're doing what we can to get through the show, but while you're getting your voice back to 100%.
So tell us about Pat Robertson.
Pat Robertson is still on TV somehow. Which is amazing to me that the guy won't go away, but he's still in the 700 Club. And basically what they do now is they have someone just reading emails to Pat Robertson, like an advice column. So someone asked Pat Robertson whether or not it would be a good idea to post ultrasound pictures of their unborn baby on Facebook. I'm sure you've all have friends.
Which a lot of...
You've all seen it. Yeah.
You know, the new moms are doing. They go and they're very excited.
Couples, as soon as they find out that they're pregnant, they're ready to make the announcement. They'll put up a little ultrasound picture of the little baby blob in the black and white photo thing. I'm a parent. I don't do this very well. And so Pat Robertson asked whether or not this was a good idea. And here's his advice.
I don't think there's any harm in it, but I tell you, there are demons and there are evil people in the world, and you post a picture like that and some cultist gets hold of it, a coven, and they begin muttering curses against an unborn child. I just don't think that this business of, posting the most intimate parts of your body on Facebook, I just can't see it. To me, it's abhorrent, but it isn't necessarily unbiblical. It's just abhorrent.
That's right. Don't post pictures of your unborn children because a coven might put a hex on it. That's his advice.
Yeah. But he starts out by saying, well, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. But then he ends up by saying, it's abhorrent.
I know.
There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it except for demons and witches will put a hex on your baby child.
He doesn't live in the real world, right? He really has this parallel universe that every once in a while he sort of pops up, right? And with these, God, pretty weird.
It's a weird comment.
He is one of the weirdest people alive.
I mean, really? You think that's out there? And they're scouring Facebook for pictures of ultrasounds so that they can throw curses at the baby.
Yeah, there we go. Molly O'Toole with us. We'll be joined also by reporters this morning from Washington Post and the National Journal and Politico. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Good news if you're a big fan of Dr. Seuss. He has a new book coming out. Dr. Seuss passed away in 1991, but a new book called What Pet Should I Get will be published July 28th. Now, what happened is Dr. Seuss's widow, Audrey, and his secretary, I guess, finally got around to cleaning out his office, and they found several sketches of books that he was working on and thinking about, and one of them is going to be What Pet Should I Get? Now, there are going to be 2 more books coming out in the future. They found that many sketches in his office,
Wow.
So you can expect 3 new Dr. Seuss books Dr. Seuss books in the near future.
What pet should I get? The answer is obvious: a cat in a hat.
That's right. Clearly. Little Caesars Pizza has finally done it, Bill. I don't eat Little Caesars Pizza. I know you probably don't. I
wouldn't dare.
Pizza, but they have a new
I wouldn't stoop that low.
A new item. It's a deep dish pizza that includes 3.5 feet of bacon wrapped around the crust.
Oh my goodness.
There, Bill.
How big is this pizza?
It's a big pizza. It's like a deep dish pizza. I mean, it's not. I mean, it's.
How deep is this dish?
How deep does this dish go? But they've got this like a deep dish, and then they have bacon all around the outside of the crust, and under the crust, it's like a bacon crust pizza.
I think it sounds fantastic. I think we should order one right now.
How many miles of bacon? No, how many?
3.5 linear feet of bacon.
Okay.
So enjoy. Please enjoy. And if maybe that's not
I'll give
your
my
bag,
share to Molly.
Yeah, you can have my slice.
I'll take it.
If that's not your bag, maybe you should just eat an apple. The U.S. Department of Agriculture on Friday approved America's first genetically modified apples. And here's the deal. They don't turn brown when they're bruised or when they're sliced. So, like there are all kinds of solutions, right? Like if you slice up your apples, like what do you do to keep them from browning? You don't have to worry about that anymore. They don't brown. They're going to be on the market. They've been approved for sale.
Just, by the way, great news. How many kids? Parents, right? Fixing snacks for your kids. You're going out on an outing. You slice up your apples, put them in a little plastic bag, and then they turn brown.
Yep.
But not now.
Not anymore.
Great.
It's very cool.
Are they going to be labeled as such?
Oh, that's a good question. I guess they have to, right? Like, depending on what's the legislation out there, you have to specify that it's a GMO
There'll be
product.
a G on every apple.
Pretty easy to tell. You just hack them with a knife, and if they turn brown, you'll know.
There we go.
Somalia at the White House yesterday, the big summit on countering violent extremism. President Obama yesterday saying that maybe the heart of his message was rejecting this idea that the terrorists we're dealing with today are in any way religiously motivated.
We must never accept the premise that they put forward, because it is a lie. Nor should we grant these terrorists the religious legitimacy that they seek. They are not religious leaders, they're terrorists.
They are, but they have been very successful in recruiting young people, particularly to say, you want to believe in something. This is, join our faith, join our cause, or whatever, or our branch of Islam. Is that sort of the focus of this summit? Is how we counter that appeal?
I think that's the crux of the issue, is that you can make the argument, as I think the administration and many others effectively do, that the Islamic State don't represent Islam. They've dubbed themselves the Islamic State, but there are a billion Muslims around the world who don't ascribe to their kind of violent ideology. But they're obviously having success. Their message is obviously resonating with a certain group of often very young people, not necessarily in desperate situations, but often who aren't finding answers elsewhere, who are questioning themselves, and they seem to resonate with this message. So they're not having success in that. So that's really the focus of the summit, is how do you counter that? How do you counter that? If a vast majority of Muslims don't ascribe to this, or a vast majority of people in the world don't ascribe to this, but it's finding traction, and not only in the Muslim community, but if it's finding traction with a certain group of people, how do you counter that? And they readily admit that they haven't been successful so far, but it's about bringing people together to try and figure that out.
Well, it's one thing for me to say that they have nothing to do with faith, really, or it's a perversion of faith, or for even Barack Obama to say that.
Right.
But doesn't that message have to really come from Muslim leaders and Muslim religious leaders?
Well, and
why don't we hear more of them, or maybe we do, maybe I just don't hear them, but why don't we hear more of them speaking out and saying, no, this is not what we're all about?
I mean, I do think that there are a lot of voices, and that they aren't elevated, that we don't hear from them very often, not necessarily because they aren't speaking. I think there are a lot of voices within the Muslim community that are making the same argument. But I think that there's certainly a tension there, and that was the tension of the summit as well. How do we target a certain audience who might be susceptible to the Islamic State's message without pretending as if this is only a problem in the Muslim community? So how do you, if you risk alienating people more by targeting them, and I think that's part of the tension, that's part of the line that the White House was walking. You don't want to alienate the Muslim community or have them feel like you're playing into the narrative that all Muslims are violent extremists like the Islamic State, at the same time as this is a lot of the vulnerable population that the message is resonating with. So you do have to target your message in order to be effective. And that balance is what they're trying to strike. And there's a lot of domestic politics around this as well that's making that very complicated.
It is interesting, I think, because there is such a thing as Muslim extremism, and with this summit, I think is the first time that we've seen steps to sort of include more people in this conversation as opposed to just going and fighting or bombing or going to another war. How effective is that as a strategy? I think because I hate to say it's diplomacy, but it's certainly going in with an open mind as opposed to guns and bombs and planes.
Well, I think that this is part of one of the administration's key strategies when it comes to fighting the Islamic State. There's the military side of things, which we talk about a lot. We talk about the military strategy. We talk about the campaign against the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria and boots on the ground and et cetera, et cetera. But even the military, what they've insisted all along is that no amount of airstrikes, no amount of Tomahawk missiles can destroy an ideology. So you have to have another kind of arm to this mission, and that is countering that message. And how do you do that? And I think that is part of that emphasis, that this has to be a kind of multifaceted approach, and that's what this summit is about. And there's a big day today at the State Department, which brings, the administration says that they're bringing over 60 representatives of foreign governments together. I mean, hell, even Russia is included in this. But the Minister of Jordan, Minister of Egypt, mayors from France, mayors from Belgium, who've experienced this in their own communities, some violence. They're all coming together at the State Department today to kind of broaden that conversation. And the White House has been focused more on kind of domestic policy in the U.S. Over the last couple days. But now that's broadening out today, which I think is really interesting. The domestic politics in the U.S. around whether or not we call it Islamic extremism or we just call it violent extremism, whatever the label might be. There's also the recognition today that a lot of our partners in this fight against the Islamic State are Muslim countries. And I think that is really important to note, that all of these people who are coming together to talk about extremism today, there are Muslim countries, there are non-Muslim countries, people of all faiths from all around the world who are coming together to talk about this.
I hear all that, and State Department people have been out, and the White House has been out saying, as you just pointed out, one of the threads here is we cannot win this battle against terrorism, against ISIS, by military action alone. At the same time, that's the easy way, right? And we're doing that, and we're good at that.
The military way, you mean?
Yeah. I mean, we've had, 5,000 bombing airstrikes so far against ISIS.
Right.
So we know how to do that. We do it. It's the other side of the equation, I think, where we're
not so good at.
Not so good at.
Right. Well, even if you look at the 5,000 airstrikes and what we're doing, in the Middle East in kind of a more tangible sort of way, one of the main concerns people have in saying that obviously we have the best, most capable, best funded and most capable military in the world. One of the reasons they say we can't be successful is because for every person we take off the battlefield, for every combatant we take off the battlefield, they're recruiting that many more. And so that strategically there is an urgency to improving the way that we try and counter that message. But you're right. I think that is something that the government struggles with.
That one impact of all of those bombing strikes is fueling more people to join ISIS against the big bad man from the West, us. necessary.
Right, and that's part of what Obama said yesterday that I found, that the president said yesterday that, and that argument I find pretty compelling, is the point of the attackers on 9/11, the point of the Islamic State is to terrify and divide people. And they want to play into this narrative that the West is at war with Islam, that the U.S. is at war with Islam. And by playing into that kind of that fight over the labeling, you're giving them what they want.
Absolutely.
So why would we? He made a strategic argument that why would we want to play directly into the narrative that they are building, that they are using to recruit people.
Molly O'Toole with us from Defense One, the big summit on countering violent extremism. The Bill Press Show here on a Thursday. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university?
Yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
This is the Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour, Philip Rucker from the Washington Post joins us at the half hour to talk about Jeb Bush's big foreign policy speech yesterday. Molly O'Toole with us here now from defense1.com. Molly, at the summit yesterday, Senator Amy Klobuchar made a point about recruitment and what we're up against from Minnesota, of course.
These extremist groups have actually targeted web videos to my state. I've seen them. They've actually shown a plane ticket from Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport to foreign lands asking them to come fight. We have to be as sophisticated as the terrorists we're working to defeat.
Just amazing. And of course, Minneapolis-St. Paul with a large Muslim community.
Right.
And they have been, ISIS has been targeting that area. And this is one of the counter, if you will, operations that our administration is now involved in that community as well, to try to fight back. But so imagine it. I mean, there they go. Here, you can join us, and we'll even send you a plane ticket.
Wow.
Right.
Minneapolis, St. Paul,
to wherever.
Right. To Istanbul, probably get you into Turkey and then slip you across the border.
To the lovely battlefield.
Yeah, right.
But what's stunning to me is that you think of these people as these heathens, these barbarians in the desert, right? That's the picture we see on television. They got a pretty sophisticated online operation.
No, they really do, and that's a huge part of the summit. But I don't think it's something that we've really figured out. Obama kind of made this joke yesterday when he was speaking. The president made this joke when he was speaking. He said, you older folks in the room, very well respected in what you do, but you're not connected. They're doing it better than you. So how do we formulate our thinking? How do we get one step ahead of them? And that's going to be a huge challenge.
You would think that we'd be ahead of them in that part of the game. But you're right. That's where we got to focus.
We got to get some 22-year-old in a room with a Twitter account and let them loose.
Thanks, Molly. Great to see you.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan, big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
33 minutes after the hour, it is The Bill Press Show on a Thursday, February 19. Coming to you live from Washington, D.C., our studio on Capitol Hill. Brought to you today by the United Steelworkers and their great international president, Leo Gerard, who joins us on our show tomorrow morning, by the way. The United Steelworkers, North America's largest industrial union, representing 1.2 million active and retired members. Check out their good work at their website, usw.org. It was Jeb Bush's day in the sun yesterday. Jeb Bush giving a speech out in Chicago at the Council for Foreign Relations, where he wanted to make clear that he was not his daddy and he is not his brother.
But I'm my own man, and my views are shaped by my own thinking and my own experiences.
Did he demonstrate that? Did he make his case? Philip Rucker, national political correspondent for The Washington Post, joins us on our news line this morning. Hey, Philip, good to have you with us.
Hey, glad to be here.
All right, Philip, I have a quick question. This is Peter sitting in with Bill today. Quick question about this. I am my own man. That was the big takeaway line from Jeb Bush's speech. We knew that that was going to be coming up. How did he distinguish himself as his own man yesterday?
Well, probably not enough. He tried to lay out some foreign policy views, sort of describe how the world has changed in the 8 years since his brother was president, and certainly in the couple of decades since his dad was president, and how changed times called for a new kind of leadership and evolving views and so forth. But interestingly, at the same time yesterday, he released a list of about 20 foreign policy advisors, almost all of whom had served either his father or his brother in their administrations, and these include figures that we all remember from the Iraq War, like Paul Wolfowitz. So it's going to be tricky for him, I think, to really prove to voters that he has a unique worldview and really articulate what that is and how it might be different from his brother George W. Bush and sort of the adventures he led the country in through the Middle East that became very unpopular.
Also, it seemed that his presentation overall seemed rather hesitant, maybe a little uncertain, a little stumbling. The most obvious point, I guess, is he said there were 200,000 members of ISIS, where our intelligence agencies, and I think he himself, his office later corrected and said, no, he meant to say 20,000. He got the decimal point in the wrong place or whatever.
Yeah.
ready for prime time on foreign policy?
You know, I think his presentation needs some work, but the substance of what he's talking about, he's clearly thought through these issues. He seemed pretty knowledgeable about the world. This is all relative, too. I mean, he's running against some candidates who have not articulated much in terms of foreign policy, one of them being Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker, who just came back from a foreign trip in London where he talked about Wisconsin cheese and other issues, but would not talk about foreign policy. So if you look at it, relatively speaking, Jeb Bush seems pretty prepared, but his presentation was, he seemed a little nervous. He tripped over himself a few times. He was actually much better in the question and answer session when he put away the prepared text and just answered questions off the cuff. He seemed much more comfortable there.
Did he give us any specific ways that he's going to be different than either his brother or Barack Obama on a foreign policy standpoint?
Sort of. He didn't exactly say, I'm going to be different than my brother in X, Y, and Z areas. Right. But if you look at the whole speech, there's a little more nuance there. I mean, certainly he's drawing a contrast with Obama. He feels like Obama's been a weak leader abroad, as all of the Republican contenders have said. And he showed that there are some areas, Cuba, for example, where he wants to have some tougher policies and a little more resolve. And he's been critical in other areas, too. But in terms of the distinctions with his brother, I think you're really going to have to analyze those words and look for any nuance, because he's not going to come out and explicitly say, I want to do this differently than George W. Bush. That's just not the way Jeb is going to present that.
Philip Rucker is with us from the Washington Post. Follow him on Twitter at Philip Rucker, Rucker, and read him at WashingtonPost.com. Now, Philip, let's get to what really matters here, and that is the money. Because the one thing behind the scenes, no matter how much he might have stumbled yesterday, I mean, from what I've read, Bush has done an incredible job of raising early money, just basically leaving everybody else in the dust.
It's huge. I mean, yesterday he was in Chicago for this speech, but he also came out of Chicago with more than $4 million in the bank. He did two huge fundraising events in Chicago. He's been doing this almost every day all around the country. He was at an event in New York City last week where the ticket price, the price to go to the event was $100,000 a person. I mean, these are huge fundraising events. He could raise up to $100 million in this first fundraising quarter, which would blow the rest of the field out of the water.
Yeah.
Chris Christie, Scott Walker, no other Republican is raising money at this level and at this pace.
No, I read about that event in New York, $100,000 a pop, and there were 40 people there, right? I mean, so you walk away from each of these events with, and I've been a candidate and I've run campaigns.
Yeah.
You don't usually walk away from an event with $4 million or $5 million, and so he I guess more than anyone, I know Chris Christie was going after some of them. Jeb Bush has successfully rounded up a lot of the former Romney people. Is that how you read it?
That's right. Perhaps the most important former Romney person is his fairly public former finance campaign chairman, Spencer Zwick. And Zwick has not endorsed anybody yet. But a lot of the behind-the-scenes bundlers, the business types, the Wall Street titans, so on and so forth, those folks are really gravitating towards Jeb Bush. They just see him as the class of the field. And he's apparently impressed a lot of these donors in private sessions. Jeb is very knowledgeable about the issues. He's pretty, comes across as pretty authentic when he's talking to somebody one-on-one, and he's been very impressive talking about immigration reform, education reform, other policy issues that these donors are really motivated by.
So what's next for Jeb? This was his attempt to sort of set the table for his foreign policy agenda. What are we looking for next out of him?
Well, the big unknown for Jeb is frankly how he'll campaign as a candidate in front of real people in real America. We've not seen that yet. We've seen him give a few big policy speeches. We've certainly seen him buckraking around the country, but we've not seen him in Iowa. We've not seen him in New Hampshire or South Carolina, and that's what's next. So on March 7th, he's going to be in Iowa talking to an agriculture summit. Maybe he'll do a little retail campaigning there as well. But I think the real test for him is going to be how he connects with activists. We've seen a lot of energy among the elite and the wealthy people in the country around him, but it's really unclear whether that energy will translate at the activist level.
You've mentioned, Philip, a couple of times some of his competition, the field that he's up against. And in the foreign policy area particularly, I was reflecting while you were speaking that Chris Christie made his ill-fated trip to London to get his street cred on foreign policy, right? You mentioned Bobby Jindal. No, you mentioned Scott Walker just got back. He didn't do himself any favors in London either. Refused to even comment on evolution, refused to talk about foreign policy at all. And then Bobby Jindal, of course, went over there and talked about all the no-go zones or whatever he called them. And so, it's almost like Jeb so far in that area is coming across as the grown-up in the room. And maybe that's what these fundraisers or these money people in the party, that's how they view him.
Well, he is, and it's not just on foreign policy. I think they view him as the adult having the serious, substantive conversations. And when you look at the competition, like Rand Paul and Chris Christie and Scott Walker, they're just not quite at that level in the debate. That's not to say they won't get there, and that they may have more political potential in terms of sort of raw ability to connect with the American people than Jeb Bush has, but they're not impressing the donors the way Bush is.
You mentioned
right now.
Yeah, and finally, you did mention the retail politics, which I find interesting too, because we haven't seen him out giving a stump speech. I don't think I've ever seen him give a stump speech. I've seen him give several speeches, but he hasn't had to run for office since he ran for re-election as governor, which was 2002, was it? Or I'm losing track.
2002.
2002. That's a long time not to be in front of a crowd, whipping up a crowd.
It's a very long time. And, I don't know how he'll perform. I remember seeing him do a few stump speeches back in 2012 when he was campaigning for Mitt Romney in that presidential year. And he was, he didn't really have people on his feet. So, we'll have to see how he does. I think his campaign team views this as a weak spot, that he's not exactly a performer. He doesn't electrify crowds. But, people might be taken with what he has to say. If he looks like a winner, they're going to gravitate around him. He certainly has the money to make himself a winner with TV ads. So we'll see.
I'll get some good surrogates out there. Hey, Philip, great to spend time with you this morning. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, glad to be here. Take care.
Philip Rucker, WashingtonPost.com.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. There was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found on the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse. Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer. Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now. Please.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Eleven minutes before the top of the hour. The new enrollment period for Obamacare has closed. Sam Baker from the National Journal will be here with us at the top of the next hour in studio to tell us all about it. And then Burgess Everett from Politico on the continuing battle between John Boehner and Mitch McConnell about what to do about funding for the Department of Homeland Security. Meantime, we were talking about Jeb Bush, his big speech in Chicago, out in Chicago on the great WCPT. Hello, Carl. What's up? Hey, Carl.
I was listening to Jeb's speech yesterday, and I thought I'd give him a chance and see what he had.
Yeah.
And I wrote down two quotes that kind of jumped out for me. One quote was when they were referring to nuclear weapons, Iran getting nuclear weapons, he said, the more we get into the nuclear stuff, I say to myself, this is a quote, holy shnikes.
What? Really?
Quote, holy shnikes. If they try to buy from other bad countries, nuclear weapons from other bad countries. Quote number 2, if you're born now, you're likely to, if you're born poor now, you're likely to stay poor. If you're born rich now, you're likely to stay rich. Now, he's going to use a big word here. It's a sticky problem. End of sentence.
Jeez. Wow.
Sticky problem and holy shnikes. And I thought to myself, this guy might be a lighter weight than his brother.
You know what, Carl? I've got it. I just wonder.
Grief.
I wonder what the people in the audience felt listening to him. You know, some of them must have been saying, seriously, right? This is the best we've got?
Well, when he was reading his speech, his head was bobbing up and down so fast, like every 3 or 4 words, I thought he was going to get whiplash. And I thought to myself, didn't you memorize any of this stuff? And after he put his speech down, that's when he started firing from the hip and saying, yeah, that poor thing's a sticky problem, and the nuclear thing, holy shnikes.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, good, now you're freewheeling. Now we really can hear
Holy
you.
shnikes. Good grief, man. What a diplomat.
All right, Carl, you got it. Hey, good to hear from you for that inside scoop on the big Jeb Bush speech yesterday. The other thing that we talked a little bit earlier, the flap has not gone away about who's going to attend or who's not going to attend the March 3rd scheduled speech by Prime Minister Netanyahu to the United States Congress, invited, of course, by John Boehner only, with no consultation with the White House, which has pissed off the White House and the State Department, and a lot of American Jews who don't like the fact that John Boehner's making this and BB are making this a political football. So we have posted, Peter, the honor roll.
Yes, indeed. Our friends at The Hill have a full list of lawmakers who will be skipping the Netanyahu speech. Listen carefully for your congressperson. In the House, 22. Earl Blumenauer from Oregon, G.K. Butterfield from North Carolina, Andre Carson from Indiana, James Clyburn from South Carolina, Diana DeGette from Colorado, Donna Edwards from Maryland, Keith Ellison from Minnesota, Raul Grijalva from Arizona, Luis Gutierrez from Illinois, Eleanor Holmes Norton from here in D.C., Edie Bernice Johnson from Texas, Barbara Lee from California, John Lewis from Georgia, Betty McCollum from Minnesota, Jim McDermott from Washington, Gregory Meeks, New York, Beto O'Rourke from Tejas, Shelley Pingree from Maine, Charlie Rangel from New York, Cedric Richmond from Louisiana, Benny Thompson from Mississippi, and our good buddy John Yarmouth from Kentucky. That's in the House. In the Senate, Patrick Leahy from Vermont, Bernie Sanders from Vermont, and Brian Schatz from Hawaii will also be staying home.
So our message to the other Democrats in Congress, Republicans will just go because it's a way of embarrassing President
they'll
Obama.
Go.
Right.
They'll go.
But our message to the other Democrats is grow a pair. Right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Grow a pair and stand up. And what you're standing up for is the President of the United States of America, the United States Congress, and our ability to decide our own internal policy differences without inviting a foreign leader to come in and attack our president in front of the United States Congress. God forbid. Speaking of the president, we'll tell you what he's up to when we come back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear. We had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves,
would you like it back?
What do people really hate?
Yep.
getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Hey, big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat this rat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like a bag?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is the Bill Press Show. Peter Ogburn sitting in with Bill Press here. Yep. He's here just helping him along. It's this time of day we always take a look at the president's schedule. So, 10:30 this morning, the president delivers remarks as part of the White House Summit on countering violent extremism. Just a little bit later at 11:20, he's going to be designating the Browns Canyon National Monument. There in Colorado. Very cool thing there. And then it's only going to take 30 minutes before he leaves the White House, heads towards Chicago. He lands in Chicago at 12:55 p.m. Central Time, delivers remarks about an hour later, leaves Illinois at 6:10 p.m. and back here at the White House around 9 o'clock tonight.
He's declaring a national monument also in Chicago.
Yes, he is.
At the former Pullman factory.
That's
there.
right.
They used to make the Pullman cars, and all the Pullman workers lived. It's a very neat part of Chicago.
Yeah, so there you go.
South Chicago.
Busy day.
Back with Sam Baker from National Journal.
This is the Bill Press Show.
James West here reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this airplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's two, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. Every time you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
So this mission is to particularly try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions, so from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. Over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
How it will manifest itself, it will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
So what we're doing is taking a series of flyovers, each at a different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We're still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now.
We're putting these filters in the bags that we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
You do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is this, is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
The most important issue on this planet right now is to protect and conserve biodiversity in the world's oceans. And I don't think people realize just how intimate our connection is with the oceans themselves. Not only do they provide the very foundation of life and control our weather, but life just simply could not exist without a healthy ocean. The real problem, though, is apathy. It's all out of sight. It's all out of mind, and people don't even think about it. But it doesn't matter whether you live in Peoria or on the coast. The fact is, whatever happens in the ocean affects all life forms on the planet Earth. If the oceans die, then civilization collapses. We all die. We cannot live on this planet without the oceans. This is, in fact, not the planet Earth. It's the planet ocean, but because we're a land-dwelling species, we refer to it as Earth. But it is the planet ocean, and the oceans are the heart and the foundation of all life on the planet.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer. Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now. Please.
2 anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
I am my own man, declares Jeb Bush yesterday. And now meet my list of 21 foreign policy advisors, 19 of whom used to work for my daddy or my big brother. Yeah, so much for his own man. Hello, everybody. What do you say? Happy Thursday, February 19. It is the Bill Press Show. We are here in our nation's capital. Very, very cold nation's capital today. Keeps getting worse and worse with our wind chill factor, but we should not complain compared to what most of you have been putting up with in many, many different parts of the country, at least. We'll all suffer together now, I guess is how it goes. Coming to you live again from Washington. Good to have you with us today, and we look forward to hearing from you on the issues of the day. You know how to do it. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. If you're listening on your local progressive talk radio station, whether you're at work, at home, in the car, or whatever, look forward to hearing from you, 866-55-PRESS. Also looking at you, of course, on Free Speech TV. Our team's in place this morning. Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy all made it in through the winter weather.
Yes, we did.
Hey, good morning.
Roads are okay.
Roads are fine.
Roads aren't bad, but it's cold. I was on time this morning until I walked outside, and you just get hit with that just chilly, freezing cold wind. So I just started my car and went back inside and stared at a wall for 5 minutes until my car got warm, and then I went outside.
Wimp.
Yeah. Guilty.
Alicia Cruz is here. Take your calls at 866-55-PRESS. And we are on Free Speech TV and worldwide on TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Thanks to the good work of videographer Cyprian Bolding. Big day, a big week for Obamacare. Sam Baker is our go-to guy from National Journal on anything related to healthcare, and he joins us in studio. It's always good to see you, Sam.
You too.
Thank you. Yesterday, the president made an announcement, surprised some people, but he named the interim director, Joseph Clancy, as the permanent new director of the Secret Service. I think it's an excellent appointment. The men and women on the Secret Service that I know think very, very highly of Joe Clancy. He comes from their ranks. He's a longtime member of the Secret Service and very well respected inside, and has already made some pretty important changes. There was a lot of pressure on the president to appoint somebody from outside the ranks who had never served in the Secret Service. The president went against that recommendation, named Joe Clancy as the permanent director, as Conan O'Brien said last night. That created quite a scene at the White House.
After a bunch of security breaches, President Obama has appointed a new head of the Secret Service.
Mm-hmm.
There's a new head of the Secret Service. Yeah, that's good. Why not? Yeah. The Secret Service director was so excited, he jumped over the White House fence for joy.
So now they'll need to find another new one.
Yeah, they'll have to find another one. Yeah.
All right, Sam Baker here with us for the first half hour. Burgess Everett from Politico will join us a little bit later. But first,
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Last night in New York City, Rudy Giuliani was speaking before a private group dinner that featured Wisconsin governor and presumable presidential candidate Governor Scott Walker. And he openly questioned whether or not Barack Obama loves America. Rudy Giuliani said, quote, "I do not believe, and I know this is a horrible thing to say, but I do not believe that the president loves America. He doesn't love you, and he doesn't love me. He wasn't brought up the way you were brought up, and I was brought up, through love of this country." End quote.
What a horrible thing to say about anybody.
We've really elevated the discourse here in
really
politics in 2015.
Yeah.
Really? I mean, Jesus.
What a disgusting human being. Absolutely.
That's terrible.
I don't think anybody has any room for Rudy Giuliani today, anyhow, except Fox News.
He was on Fox this morning.
Yeah, I saw him
He was on
again
Fox
this morning.
this morning, of course. Yeah. So, you know, the Saturday Night Live 40th anniversary special.
I just want to say, I would not say that about Rudy Giuliani. I wouldn't say it about...
I'm sure he loves this country.
I wouldn't say it about Jeb Bush. I never said it about George Bush. I wouldn't say it about anybody of the other side. To say that is just shows, I don't know.
Yeah, it's silly. It's silly.
Was he drunk?
I can't answer that question. The Saturday Night Live 40th anniversary special this past weekend.
Yeah.
More and more stories are coming out about it. Last night, Norm Macdonald, former cast member, went on this. It was 110 tweets describing all kinds of stories from the anniversary because he helped put a lot of it together, and he's the guy that actually put together the Celebrity Jeopardy sketch that's so funny. But one of the things he said is that they had approached Eddie Murphy to play Bill Cosby in the sketch, and Eddie Murphy turned it down. And Norm Macdonald said the thing about Eddie Murphy is he's not like a lot of comics, apparently. He doesn't need the laughs. He doesn't need it. He just can go be Eddie Murphy. And he didn't want to kick Bill Cosby when he was down. So they still worked in a Bill Cosby joke. They just used somebody else besides Eddie Murphy.
Yeah, there were some people who would go there. Yeah.
Absolutely. And last night, Allison Williams, daughter of Brian Williams, sat down.
Peter Pan.
Yeah, with Peter Pan. She sat down with NBC talk show host Seth Meyers at the 92nd Street Y in New York City for just a little chat. And right off the bat, she acknowledged the issues with her family. She said, quote, one thing this experience has taught me, or one thing this experience has not done is shake my trust and belief in him as a man. He's a really good man. He's an honest man. He's a truthful man. He has so much integrity. He cares so much about journalism. And yes, he's a really good dad, but I know you can trust him because, as any good daughter does, I have tested him on that.
Good for her. Good for her.
She's sticking up for her dad. She says still have their health. They're still happy as a family, and she also says she looks forward to watching him on TV again very soon. I'm not so sure that's going to happen, or at least not on NBC.
Yeah, I admire her for
yeah, sure. Yeah, at least she confronted it.
Last thing you want to see is her throwing her dad under the bus.
That's true. Yeah.
So we had the deadline this week for sign-ups for Obamacare. President Obama went on Facebook for some reason with drippy music, elevator music in back of him. Who at the White House makes this decision? We've talked about this before. Just pulled the plug on the music. At any rate, President Obama making the news.
During this open enrollment period for the Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare, 11.4 million people have either re-enrolled or enrolled for the first time.
It's a little too upbeat to be Cialis.
It's like a Cialis commercial.
It sounds like it, yeah.
It does.
Ask your doctor if Obamacare is right for you.
That's exactly what it is. Oh, yeah. Or an elevator music. You get in and, oh, God. I don't know why they do that. But what about those numbers, Sam?
They're pretty good. They're not quite as, wow, how did they pull that off as last year? But no one really expected them to be. They pretty much meet the administration's goals. A little bit lower than what some, some independent experts had thought, but it's a good number. It's a good, solid number. As the administration has said, they think it's going to take a couple of years, maybe a couple more years than people thought initially, to sort of ramp up to full enrollment. They laid out the trajectory that they think, or that they thought before open enrollment that they would be on, and they appear to still be on it.
What were those numbers that they were looking for?
They were looking for about 9 to 10 million people actually covered this year. And as this whole rigmarole that we remember from last time, not all of those 11 million people will pay their premium. So it's not like they're all going to disappear, but that number will sort of be adjusted down a little bit, and we'll probably be in that $9 to $10 million people range.
What about any hiccups in the system that has plagued them in the past?
There were a couple of hiccups. I think one relatively significant one on the last day. Mostly by demand. The system functioned really well through the entire open enrollment period, right up until the very last minute. It was a much simpler application, much more streamlined. The website held up really well. And President Obama said in that video, Sunday, which was the last day for enrollment was the single biggest enrollment day in either open enrollment period.
Oh, wow.
So since it opened up last October, this is the most people in one day they've ever had. So you can understand how the system got a little overloaded. And HHS has said that they will let people who were, quote, in line and weren't able to get through still finish up their application.
How many of the 11.4 are renewals and how many are new? Do we know?
It was tracking at about 50-50, I think,
Really?
throughout new customers versus returning customers. And that would include people who auto-renewed and people who went back through and shopped for for a new plan and potentially a better deal.
Which I remember you're recommending that everyone should do.
Yes, I hope people did.
Right. And now that they've renewed, how long is this policy good for?
This policy year, and then
you have to renew every single year?
Every year.
Why?
That always was in the individual market. A plan would
And these
for a
are
year.
still private insurance plans.
Right. They're private insurance plans. They're a year-to-year contract. Part of the reason that consumers is because new insurers are still
More competition, lower prices.
Exactly.
In fact, what about everybody said, the big problem this year was going to be the premiums are going to skyrocket. Did they?
No. No. There are consumers who, if they didn't shop around, what they have to pay could skyrocket, but a better deal was available to them. They just may not have gotten it. That's a real problem. A lot of people won't find that out until tax time. This is sort of the next issue that you can see bubbling up. People might get a bill from the IRS that says you owe us a certain amount of money because of how your subsidy was calculated. Some Democrats are looking for a fix to that. But no, premiums, on their own, the price that the insurance company sets went up. They go up every year, but I think the average was somewhere around 8%, which is sort of what people were expecting. And I think anything in the single digits doesn't count as skyrocketing.
And we're not that far away from when it was literally called Armageddon. And so it's like every year that we're starting to go through this, procedure, it's kind of like, hardly Armageddon.
Now, the 11.4 is just the federal exchanges, correct?
That's everybody. That's federal and state.
And state, okay.
Yes.
Does not include expanded Medicaid.
Correct.
How many people
good
on top?
Question.
Yeah. Okay.
Several million. Some estimates put it at 4 million. Some are a lot higher. It's sort of hard to tell because of the way Medicaid eligibility works, and it's also hard to tell, who's truly in the expansion and who maybe was eligible anyway and just didn't know it and has signed up now. So it's hard to put a number on that, but it is many millions more people.
And then the other number, I guess, are young people who are on their parents' plan up to the age of 26. That's another, 3 million or so?
Yeah, a couple million. So
you're getting close to 20 million people who have health insurance under Obamacare who didn't have it before, didn't have access to it, or couldn't afford it before.
Yeah, and the reason that we focus so much on the number of people in the exchanges is just sort of that was the biggest structural new thing.
Yeah.
Some insurance companies already let people stay on their parents' plans. Medicaid existed, was expanded. So this is sort of the new thing that Obamacare set up for the first time, and it's going fine.
Now the question is, will the Supreme Court unravel it all? Sam Baker here from the National Journal, nationaljournal.com. We'll take a quick break. Be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university?
Yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer. At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
Press. I'm helping Bill out while we get his voice back to 100%. We're joined by healthcare reporter for National Journal, Sam Baker. Sam, thanks for being here. So the next step in this Obamacare Affordable Care Act saga is the Supreme Court.
Yes.
It's coming. It's coming soon. What are we looking out for?
The big question right now is who will be sort of the swing vote.
Mm-hmm.
You got 9 justices. It's obviously takes 5 to win a case. John Roberts cast the deciding vote in favor of Obamacare last time. People think maybe this time he won't be so inclined. It might be Anthony Kennedy, who the government has a chance of winning over. But oral arguments are March 4th, which will give us our first sort of public glimpse into how the justices are thinking about this case. And
Hasn't been argued yet.
It has not. Nope, March 4th. And then a decision at the end of June. So pretty big case.
We're going to tweet out a link, by the way, to your piece on will John Roberts or Anthony Kennedy save Obamacare.
Oh, thank you.
So how bad could it be for Obamacare?
Really, really bad.
Really bad.
This is, of those 11.4 million people we were talking about, about 7.3, so the majority, would lose their subsidies right away if the administration or if the Supreme Court rules against Obamacare in this case.
Other than just wanting to kill Obamacare, which is their ulterior motive, what argument do they make? Why shouldn't these people get the same subsidies people do in other states?
There is a line sort of deep down in the statute that refers to the subsidies coming through, quote, an exchange established by the state. And so these challengers say that means that they are only available in states that establish their own exchanges, not where the federal government did the job for them.
And hasn't almost anybody in Congress who had anything to do with this legislation said that's not their intention, that was not the purpose, that's totally wrong?
Yes. It's actually really difficult to find anyone who was involved in the process who will say that is absolutely what we intended to do. The states have made the point they didn't know that was the deal that were being presented with when they decided whether to set up their own exchanges.
Yeah. All right, March 4th. That's going to be a big week. Bibi Netanyahu on March 3rd and Supreme Court on March 4th. Sam Baker, so good to see you. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you.
We jump over to Congress with Burgess Everett next.
Is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. If I see dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan, big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, 33 minutes after the hour now here on Thursday, February 19. Congress out of town, House and Senate, for their big President's Week break and President's Day week break, whatever. You would think that means that all congressional reporters just head for the hills. They go skiing, they go to the beach, you know, they're in Baja, they're in the Caribbean. Nope, maybe the rest of them are. Not Burgess Everett, man. He is on the job for Politico. He knew we wanted him this week, and so he stayed in town.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. I
Just
was
for
going to
us.
go to the Cayman Islands, but I was like, Bill wants me on Thursday, so I can't leave.
We put up the Burgess signal.
We did, yeah.
I'm needed.
Burgess, good to see you.
Good to see you too, sir.
All right. So I don't know whether you saw this morning a full-page ad in the New York Times, a memo to Speaker John Boehner. Who is our commander-in-chief? Barack Obama or Bibi Netanyahu?
Yep.
The controversy goes on, and the headline in the ad is, will Congress side with our president or a foreign leader?
It's only going to get worse, too, as we get closer to March 3rd, I think. But yeah, I mean, we were just talking about there's polling out. Republicans are pushing a poll that says Congress wants Netanyahu.
You wrote
here.
about this yesterday.
I did. I wrote about this yesterday. Very controversial stuff because the pollster, John McLaughlin, has also been an advisor to Netanyahu.
Oh yeah, I mean he's a Republican pollster.
So you can so you can see an opposite polls, depending on how you ask the question, the polls will find and show different things like. Did Boehner go about it the right way and how he invited Obama? Well, a lot of people don't think so, but then at the same time, a lot of people still think that Congress should hear out Netanyahu. So I only expect these full-page ads. I haven't seen a TV ad yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing them because this is going to be the event in March.
Mm-hmm. And Peter, we talked about the honor roll.
Yeah, we have the list out there of who's going and who's not going from our friends at the Hill. They've they put the whole list together. Politically, how smart of a move is it, do you think, for them to just say, like, we're not going?
Yeah, I mean, Obama's in his last 2 years, but the Democrats obviously don't want to stick a finger in his eye because they're upset at the way this was arranged. But just the way Israeli politics dominates our domestic politics, our relationship with Israel, these ongoing Iran negotiations, it's not going to hurt most members to show up, hear what Netanyahu says, and sure, they can leave and flame him afterwards. But I think most people that are on the fence on that list are going to end up going.
I don't think it'll hurt him to stay away either. Because I think the ones that I've seen, including John Yarmouth, who's a Jew himself, they've said, look, we know what he's going to say.
Right.
There's a variety of reasons for not going. We know what he's going to say, or he's made it a choice between my president, Republican or Democrat, my president, and a foreign leader. Pretty clear where I stand when that goes. And the other third thing, which I think is more telling, is they resent, and I've talked to a lot of Jews myself who really resent Boehner/Netanyahu making support for Israel a partisan political issue.
Right. And it just speaks
to
this.
And that's exactly what Boehner
this
has done.
adversarial relationship, right, between President Obama and Netanyahu. I mean, it's never been good, and it's never been worse than it is right this second. So I think this is going to be the biggest story in the beginning of March. I don't know how it's going to play out. One thing I was wondering is if, say, 50 Democrats skip the speech, can you tell by the way the cameras are showing Congress, or are they going to go to hide it?
But if all Democrats stayed away, you could tell.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and empty seats would send quite the message. I just don't think that most members are going to be up to it when it comes down.
One of the statements, Congresswoman Betty McCollum from Minnesota, she put out a statement, said, quote, "In my view, Mr. Netanyahu's speech before Congress is nothing more than a campaign event hosted by Speaker Boehner and paid for by the American people." Charlie Rangel says, "I'm offended as an American." John Lewis says he's not going, but also wanted to emphasize that this is not a formal boycott. He's just not going to go. So they all have their reasons for not going.
My suggestion is that Bibi do what I did. If you get this certain cold, right, the doctor will tell you not to use your voice for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So, like, if the last week of February, Bibi comes down with what I've got, and I'd be glad to give it to him, then he can just say, I'm sorry, I wanted to come, but I can't
really
come
wish I
because
could.
I don't have my voice left.
Congressman Adam
cancel.
Schiff had an interesting suggestion. I believe it was Tuesday. He said Netanyahu should also, maybe in addition to or in place of this address, have a private meeting with members of Congress, not to be televised, which would take some of the politics out of it.
That's been suggested.
Still, I don't think that's going to happen, but it would be an interesting
because
compromise.
Netanyahu wants the cameras.
Right.
He wants the cameras. So that can be seen back home where he's up for re-election.
He'll be looking prime ministerial.
Right. Yeah, in front of the United States Congress.
Close enough, man.
I like
Making
that.
it up. Let that go.
Meanwhile, Mitch McConnell took over as Senate Majority Leader and said there's not going to be any government shutdown.
Right.
Everybody heard that, I guess, except John Boehner.
Right. And they kind of have different issues to play to, right? Boehner went down the kind of shut down rabbit hole with Republicans, the conservatives in 2013. And while they suffered short-term consequences for that, the election gave them a bigger majority than ever. So a lot of Republican reasoning says we didn't get punished for that shutdown. But McConnell has a different task. He's always been kind of the consummate deal maker. He's definitely a conservative guy, but he wants to keep the trains running on time, so to speak. And this is the first deadline of his Senate, and he does not want to blow it. And I don't think he will blow it, but it seems like a possibility given that there's no solution to how DHS gets funded in a way that Democrats will vote for it.
Yeah, I mean, and Boehner Sunday telling Chris Wallace, shut it down. Shut it down. It's okay with me. Just shut it down.
I don't think those were the exact words.
No, but close, by the way.
Certainly. The word was certainly.
Yeah.
It wasn't too far.
No, he didn't back away. I mean, he made it clear.
Well, the blame shifting has been, it's almost amazing how preemptive this blame shifting has been from both parties. I mean, they've been saying it's the shutdown, which has not occurred yet, is the other party's fight for like 3 weeks now.
Yeah.
So there are indications they're ready to just see who Americans
Yeah, I mean, John Boehner
blame.
keeps saying blame the Senate Democrats, blame the Senate Democrats. At the same time, you've got John McCain, Bob Corker, I believe, Ted Cruz, and others who have publicly said the House strategy is wrong.
I was a little surprised, and still am, that Democrats didn't allow it to be debated, because then they could still block it on the back end, the way the Senate procedure works, if they didn't get a vote on their amendment. But what I've been told is that they thought even a procedural vote for this with the immigration riders could be seen by people as tacitly supporting it, or supporting debate on immigration on the spending bill. So that kind of explains why they didn't even allow it to come to the floor.
But isn't the bigger issue here, quo vadis the Republican Party? I mean, right? What direction is it going in? Is it going in a continued John Boehner burn the buildings down kind of mode, Tea Party mode, or is it going into a Mitch McConnell, let's show that we know how to govern and get some things done?
Or the third option, I guess, would be right before the deadline, everybody might get a different view on things.
That's the way this Congress has worked. It's
the only way I know Congress works from my short time covering it is everything is get close to the deadline. Now you can pass something.
Right. Burgess Everett here, covering Congress for Politico and for the Bill Press Show while he's at it.
I just added the title.
We are into this big battle over DHS, and it's related, of course, to the efforts of what it's all about, is to undo President Obama's executive actions on the Dreamers. 866-55-PRESS is our toll-free number. Love to hear from you. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship. Families are being punished. When they incarcerate your children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. Partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive when predatory phone companies gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
Two anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC. or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Peter Ogburn filling in with Bill Press. He's here. We're just helping Bill conserve his voice until he gets to be 100%. We were, of course, joined by congressional reporter for Politico.
Not right there, but
Burgess.
Working on it.
It's getting there. It's getting there. It takes a village, Bill. And look, I'll take 70% of Bill Press any day. Right? We're joined by congressional reporter for Politico, Burgess
Checks
Everett.
in the mail.
Thanks, buddy. That's what I get paid for, right?
Yeah.
Congressional reporter for Politico, Burgess Everett, is in studio with us. Burgess, thanks for being here, man.
You're welcome, man.
So the president has now had the Keystone XL legislation on his desk for over a week now that Congress sent him.
Yeah, the veto is coming
Veto
soon.
clock is ticking.
And that'll be the first major veto of his presidency. He's vetoed a couple other things, but they were way more minor than Keystone, which, and to many people, is not a major bill, but it's become this political football that this veto will probably be a pretty big moment for him and the Democratic base.
How's it gonna proceed? What's next?
He's going to say this is not happening, and congressional Republican leaders may put this up for a veto override vote, but it would be purely symbolic. We'd expect the same result. I wouldn't be surprised if a couple more Democrats dropped off simply because of the optics of voting over his veto. It probably depends on their own personal political situation, whether you want to be seen as with Obama and environmentalists, or you want to kind of make hay about I stood up to the president and voted against his veto. But the result would not change.
Do you think he'll have a big ceremony in the East Room to veto it, or?
Given all the tricky politics.
I'm down there every day. You're right. I mean, you reminded me. I've never seen him veto a bill. I've seen him sign many bills. I've never seen him. He hasn't vetoed that many.
I mean, given the tricky politics that he's trying to navigate on trade, on foreign policy with the AUMF, the Iran deal, I don't think making a big deal out of it in that sort of ceremony would be particularly helpful to his already bad relationship with congressional Republicans.
Yeah.
But it could help him politically. It would be a purely political decision. Does this?
Yeah. I think unlikely that they have a ceremony. I think he'll just veto it.
Quiet. Hey, tomorrow's Friday.
Friday news dump.
Could be a perfect one.
5:00 tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah.
See what's on the schedule.
I guess the logic there is that reporters are all out drinking at that hour, but I don't know who
Speak for yourself, dude.
You're out drinking a lot earlier than 5:00 on a Friday.
We were talking a little bit earlier about the continuing controversy over Prime Minister Netanyahu, invited by Speaker John Boehner to come in and basically attack the President of the United States in front of a joint session of Congress. Diane, out in Albuquerque, New Mexico, has a comment. Hi, Diane.
Hi, yes, sir. You inspired me earlier. I turned the radio off and I called all three of my representatives, Tom Udall, Martin Heinrich, and Michelle Lujan Grisham, who's my congressperson.
Mm-hmm.
And I really usually don't call them in fury, but I was so angry that they are not on that list. I really was. We all know what he's going to say, so staying away isn't a big, isn't going to hurt their knowledge. I was furious, and I'm surprised that Nadler isn't staying away either, so far anyway.
Yeah, Jerry Nadler and Elliot Engel are people that I would think might stay away, but they've said so far that they're going. Leader Pelosi has said she's going for now. Diane, that's so good to hear from you. And by the way, what you did is what other people ought to do.
Sure.
If you really feel strongly about this, call your member, call your senator, and say, look, it's important here to make a statement and stay away. It's funny. I guess I inspired myself. You guys saw me here just sending an email. I was just sending an email to a friend of mine in Congress saying, your name is not on the list.
Going to name names? Name names,
I'm not going to name names.
Mr. Burgess.
No, but I just sent an email to him saying, all your friends are on that list. Get on the list, dude. So I'm doing the same thing.
All right, so we know it's a guy. He said dude.
It could be dudist. I don't... There's no gender bias.
I know,
even keeping the name anonymous, you should update on what your response is, the response is.
Yeah. I will. In fact, we are going to keep this honor roll updated between now and March the 3rd.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So beyond Keystone Pipeline, is there anything else in the vision of Mitch McConnell we can expect?
I mean, the way this year has lined up, the first half of this year, it's really just deadline after deadline after deadline. They've set up this year. You got this SGR, the Medicare doc fix. We're going to need that in March, or else these Medicare payments will all be slashed, which nobody in Congress wants. Then you have a transportation bill that you need. You have the Patriot Act, portions of that expire, which could affect the intelligence programs that have been such a huge battle in Congress. So, the way, especially when you watch how long it took to do the Keystone Pipeline, you get an idea that the way McConnell wants to run the Senate, opening up amendments, everything is going to take a while to do. So other than focusing on those deadlines, trying to do a budget, I think that kind of gives you an idea of what the Senate will be working on, and the Republican House will be saying, well, we passed a lot of stuff, why aren't you taking it up? But the reason is the Senate takes forever.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look to me like we're talking about a big, productive year of Congress.
Right. I think trade is what might be the sort of positive momentum that the Republicans want to get going, because tax reform looks already pretty beleaguered to me.
I think it's a bad sign that we are where we are after Mitch McConnell was very, very vocal about how we're going to show that we can lead. We're not going to let the government shut down. Here we are, we're talking about a possible government shutdown. We're going to show that we can lead, and they're sending legislation to the president that he knows is going to get vetoed.
The interesting thing is, too, like, that you could see this coming more than 2 months ago.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And some of his statements came since that. So maybe there's something he knows that we don't know. But I mean, both the outcomes of DHS and Keystone have been preordained. We knew that they would pass Keystone and Obama would veto it, and we knew that this DHS bill had no chance of getting Democratic support.
All right, now be honest.
Oh, God.
Wasn't this more fun than the Cayman Islands?
Being here?
Yeah.
Totally, right?
Yeah, all right. That's why we like Burgess Everett. Thanks, Burgess. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
From Politico, Politico.com.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment, and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Well, we made it through the day, Peter. Thank you for helping me.
We're getting there,
along.
buddy. We're getting there.
One day at a time.
It takes a village.
We have tomorrow and then the weekend.
That's right.
But first, a big show for you tomorrow. Leo Gerard, president of the United Steelworkers Union, will be joining us. Very, very much in the news these days because there are strikes underway at several U.S. refineries by steelworkers all across the country on some very important issues. He'll tell us all about them. And they'll also be joined by the campaign manager for Elizabeth Warren. Oh, no, that's right. She's not running.
That's right.
So we have the non-campaign manager for the non-Elizabeth Warren campaign. Have a great Thursday, folks. Come back and see us again tomorrow.
This
we'll be
is
looking
the
for you.
Bill Press Show.